Everyone, welcome back to a new post today. COP30, that's the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change, is taking place in Belém, Brazil. It is the host of COP30 and it has been the place where the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted way back in 1992 at the Rio Earth Summit in Brazil itself. So 30 years after now, the 30th COP now brings back the Climate Change Summit to the place where the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change was adopted. Some very important decisions to be taken back, and now this is the stage where the global south or the voice of the developing countries can actually play a bigger role because of the backing off of the world's largest emitters, that is USA and Europe, from the climate goals. Let's have a quick review of what exactly is the COP, what is it important for, the three main important decisions that will be discussed over this 2 weeks of meeting from almost 145 countries, civil society organization, businessmen and also NGOs as well. So this annual conference, called as the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, this convention was signed in 1992, and it is a meeting to discuss the responsibilities of the countries to reduce the aspects or the factors that contribute to global warming or climate change, harming lives and also ecosystems of the earth. So this year's host is Belém, the rainforest city of the Amazon in Brazil, and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change committed countries to work together to fight climate change. That is, bringing all the countries together to do actions what they can to reduce climate change. The treaty also established a very important principle called as the common but differentiated responsibility, which means the rich countries which have been responsible for emitting most of the CO2 shall bear greater responsibility in helping the developing countries to tackle climate change through funds, technology, etc. The rotating presidency now is held by Brazil, sets the summit agenda and works through the year to rally governments towards the actions and the goals. The host conducts a 2-week summit drawing global attention to issues while giving national leaders a chance to swap ideas and hold one another accountable as well. So this year's summit is going to focus mainly on the financing. Now, for many years, the 30th Climate Summit marks a full circle moment because Brazil has been the host of the Rio Earth Summit way back in 1992, 33 years ago, where the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted. And this year, the country insisted that the event should return to the roots, acknowledging the world's most vulnerable country, the people, that is the indigenous groups, especially from the Amazon rainforest. So they will be discussing on issues with regard to funding and also reducing emissions. The main players at the summit are mostly the national governments, which form teams to talks. Often the countries speak together in groups where they have similar interests. For example, some of the voices include the Alliance of Small Island States facing existential threat from rising seas, the G77 plus China bloc of developing countries. There are countries called as the Africa Group and also the basic group of countries which represents Brazil, South Africa, India and China. US, let me tell you, has pledged to quit the Paris Climate Treaty and has stepped away from its past leadership role. China, Brazil and others now have stepped in to fill the void. The 2 weeks of long time will focus on the climate finance, the actions that the countries have taken through their nationally determined contributions which will be submitted, and also the pathway to achieve the climate change goals. But all this does not seem very simple, because recently after US has quit, there seems to be a leadership void from the world's largest emitter. But now the leadership being with Brazil, the host of the COP30, there is a green moment where they see an opportunity for the global south and the developing countries to make their voices heard. They see it as an opportunity for multilateralism, and now for the leadership to be passed from the emitters to the effectors, that the countries that are affected, that is the global south. And therefore the Brazilian president has given a positive note that this time The target will be set up by the global south countries and the final outcome will be decided by them. So what are the most important topics that will be focused at this COP? The three main important outcomes that all the countries are looking at are: number one, an agreement that will allow 300 billion in climate finance from the developed countries committed at COP29. COP29 last year was held at Azerbaijan, Baku. They decided a Baku to Belem roadmap of garnering $1.3 trillion of funding from the developed countries through the developing countries, which will come from both public and private participation. 300 billion of this 1.3 trillion will come from the developed countries. So they will decide on how this finance is going to come to the developing countries to tackle climate finance. Number two, all governments to commit stop investing in fossil fuels to support just mechanism allowing the developed countries at the national level to transition to low carbon economies. And number three, more ambitious commitments from the countries aim to go beyond existing commitments to submit suitably ambitious future climate change plans through the nationally determined contributions. The next most important topic that will be discussed is the nationally determined contributions set out in Paris Climate Agreement, where they are the responsibilities of individual countries, which will be submitted in documents about the steps that they will be taking to tackle climate change. By September 2025, 100 countries submitted the new nationally determined contribution climate targets, and after analyzing 64 new nationally determined contribution targets, some climate targets of other countries remain to be submitted. So the next is about Baku to Belem roadmap of 1.3 trillion. At the COP29, Baku had agreed that the finance now will increase to at least $1.3 trillion up to 2035. This is called the Baku to Belem roadmap of 1.3T, and out of this 300 billion will be coming from the developed countries. The Tropical Forest Forever facility. Now this has been launched by Brazil, who holds the presidency of COP30. It is a significant achievement in Belem, and it is a $1.25 billion blended finance investment fund which will be rewarded for forest conservation in the tropical countries in 2026. So India will also be getting money out of this to conserve forests. Climate coalition. Brazil proposes a climate coalition to integrate carbon markets, including border carbon adjustment to non-members, similar to G7 Climate Club initiative. And the last, Australia and Turkey both want to host the COP31 conference, but there is no agreement on that. However, if there is no agreement among Turkey and Australia, it will be conducted in Bonn. So these are some of the important highlights that are going to be discussed, and last but not the least, bringing to the table the indigenous voices, that is the tribals who stay in the forest and they're being affected, so their voices also will be heard especially. And these are the most important topics that are going to be discussed in this 2 weeks period from November 10th to November 21st. Do keep track of them on a daily basis. This is very important for you from your sustainable development point of view, which is in GS paper 3 for the UPSC syllabus. Also important for your group 1 examination. The very basic way that you can start your preparation is by knowing, first of all, what is this and what exactly is going on in the summit. So these things can be caught hot when they are fresh, when they are happening on a day-to-day basis. This will not only improve your knowledge about the topic, but a basic knowledge always will give you an insight into the further developments that keep happening on a day-to-day basis. It will enhance your understanding of the issue. Not only that, it will enhance your answer writing skills. You'll be able to analyze better and even to attempt good essays as well. So if you did like these points which I presented to you, do like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to comment at the end of the video. I shall see you in my new post. Until then, it's very happy learning.